It's always nice to get a pet before 99, and I get the Jack of Blades achievement. Again, I think it's bugged. I finished up the 99 Necromancy grind with some powerful essence rituals using 3 tier 3 attraction glyphs. With your soul attraction high enough, you'll get a disturbance on every tick that could possibly spawn a disturbance. For powerful rituals, that's every 12 seconds, starting at 71 seconds left, then 59, 47, 35, 23, and finally 11. The experience is incredibly fast. Over 1 million an hour, it's ridiculous. And by completing those disturbances, you get a lot of robust and powerful mementos. We'll need those later. And there's 99. The cape is sold by this nondescript spirit. Not very exciting. Maybe it should have been Nomad, I don't know. The skill cape, when worn, acts as a free alteration glyph appropriate to your level. And no, you can't boost to get the better ones. I'm stuck using Multiply 2 until level 103. But an extra 40% yield on top of 180% from 3 Multiply 3 glyphs is still better than nothing. Now that I have 99 and I have access to the skill cape perk, I wanted to start doing some PVM with Necromancy. Specifically, I wanted to fight Rasial, but that required doing the quest Alpha and Omega, which itself requires 95 Necromancy, that's not a problem, I already got that, and 30,000 souls in your Well of Souls. My plan was to wait until 99 to do powerful communions so I could take advantage of the cape perk. I was worried that my best focus for those communions would be dinosaur bones and frost dragon bones, but because of that I'd be getting souls from my well very slowly. But because I trained to 99 with attraction glyphs doing powerful essence rituals, I ended up with dozens of powerful mementos. Since those mementos give 75 souls each, and I compare it with a bunch of multiply glyphs, I was getting 240 souls per ritual. Not only was it faster to get 30,000 souls this way, but it also required way fewer inks than I expected. To think I was excited to see 36 from Greater Communions with Dragonkin bones. Oh, how quickly we grow in a week. Anyway, with 30,000 souls in my well, it was time to start and finish Alpha and Omega and unlock the Rasial boss fight. The quest fight itself is pretty easy. It's identical to the actual fight, but the numbers are reduced. He does less damage, he has less health, standard story mode stuff. Do note, this was well before I had a handle on the best rotation for this boss, so the kill ain't all that pretty to watch. I get better at fighting this guy later, trust me. He Wizard of Oz's us, revealing his true intentions as a gigantic green head. Like his other apprentices, he was hoping for us to learn and grow in strength, at which point he would swoop in and usurp everything we'd gained. All to wipe out life on Galenor to fight the Shadows. Kinda like the jailer from Shadowlands, but at least this plot thread didn't last 2 years. He's not all that upset though. Rasial was convinced that he would be the one to protect Galenor, but seeing the one who defeated him is a fellow Guardian, he's hopeful. The world is in safe hands. And you know, as schmaltzy as it was, I kinda unironically love that the moral of this story is that friendship conquers all. I found more strength from my undead friends choosing to help me fight, unlike Rasial who enthralls and controls them. How dorky. I love it. So much fantasy has been grim and bleak this last decade or so. Sometimes it's nice to see a heartwarming resolution, you know? Alright, time to kill some shit. Okay, so Rasial was doing a lot of damage. The RS guy was putting out videos. The RS guy was putting out videos like a machine, and he put out one video explaining a low-effort method of killing Rasial, relying on Revolution to keep your skeleton warrior and ghosts up and attacking as much as possible. All I'd have to do is keep track of my necrosis stacks and finger Rasial when I had at least 6, or use the Death Guard spec. He was using a Hellhound familiar in the video. It reduces your damage by 20%, taking the damage itself. With Prisms of Restoration, it should stay healthy enough to last the whole fight. Pair that with the Darkness incantation, and the innate 10% dodge chance on my Death Warden armor, and the fight should be rather survivable. Okay, so the final phase was ridiculous. Constant damage, I was drinking Sailfish. I knew I was doing something wrong, but I wasn't sure what. I tried again and died to what looks like an auto attack. Oops. Got too close to him during this kill. Do that and he cartwheels away like an acrobat and summons a bunch of bone boys to beat you up. I handled that fine though. Blood Siphon shines when there are a lot of enemies, but that last phase, I just couldn't get the hang of it. What was worse was he was death marked, so I only needed about 10,000 more damage to finish him off. I know now what the problem was. Can you tell? Look at my action bar and see if you can figure it out. I'll reveal the answer later. After an ugly, ugly final phase, leaving me with no food and a limping Hellhound, I got Rasial down to execution range and Deathmark did him in. He dropped 20 raw rocktails. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Why do you have fish? Well, I guess, I mean, they're dead. So yeah, Necromancer would have corpses with them. I didn't see this as sustainable. I didn't see this method as sustainable. I was chewing through way too much food. I was doing something wrong. Skill issue. But rather than learn, I ignorantly deduced that the problem wasn't me, it was my gear. The itty bitty damage boost from tier 80 power armor is precisely what I needed, obviously. But to get to that, I need to finish Killy's tier 80 power armor task. 5 Queen Black Dragon kills, 5 Nex kills. People told me Nex wasn't so bad with Necromancy, that the only challenging phase is the blood phase, which ironically was never a phase I had trouble with. Even though I kept dying to Nex over and over again a while ago when I was trying to kill her with ranged, the blood phase wasn't a problem. It was the ice phase. But then I realized something. The Prison of Ice attack does about 8,000 damage. With Death Warden gear, I have almost twice that. With a Power Burst of Vitality, it's nothing more than a tickle. Maybe Nex won't be so bad. Okay, I guess she ain't so bad after all. It makes me wonder, is it Necromancy itself that's making this possible? Is it the gear? Is it the fact that I'm using full manual? Or is it because I learned only recently that I can drink potions and power bursts while stunned and trapped in the Prison of Ice? Perhaps we'll never know. It's probably all that. Regardless, I think getting 4 more kills is gonna be a pretty easy task. I came back with a Hellhound familiar just for a little bit of damage reduction. It never hurts, right? The biggest mistake I noticed was that I was using Death Skulls while standing too far away from Nex. If there are no targets within 5 tiles of the target you hit, the skulls don't bounce. If you stand within 5 tiles, the skulls will bounce off you and then hit the enemy again, bounce off you, hit the enemy again, and it does that a few times. You don't take damage, so that's a good thing. If the skulls bounce correctly, and you're wearing an Igneous Kalmor, Death Skulls does an average of 1,000% ability damage. It's a very strong ultimate. The thing is, the max range of the Death Guard is 6 tiles. So if you're at max range, your Death Skulls won't bounce back to you, effectively quartering the damage of the ultimate. Mistakes aside, I look forward to optimizing these kills and finally getting a full set of ceremonial robes. But 5 kills was all I needed for the time being, so I only got 5. Once I got the 5 Zarite fragments, I returned to Killy to unlock the tier 80 power armor. I killed the QBD already, she's a pushover. Not even worth noting. The tier 90 power armor requires an Ambassador kill, a Telos, Solak, or Virago kill, and we need to dip a piece of Greater Ensouled Cloth in the toxic corpse of Araxxi. I've sparred with the spiders a few times before, and I totally didn't faceplant to an instant kill spider. How could that have ever happened? I didn't record it either, so as far as you know, I didn't die. I brought a wand with me because I think wielding it before Araxxi respawns will cause him to use melee. Melee spooter, higher chance drop scythe piece. Do good, make good weapon. To know it would be a good rotation against Araxxi though. I used Living Death, but it probably didn't matter much. What I should have done, now that I'm watching this footage back, is cast Death Skulls, build up to 100% Adrenaline, then cast Living Death, which resets the cooldown of Death Skulls, build back to 60% Adrenaline, and cast it again. Either Araxxi would be dead by that point, or dead after casting the ultimate again. If not, I'd likely have 6 or 8 Necrosis stacks from auto attacks, autos during Living Death grant 2 Necrosis stacks, and I could just finger a death the old girl, or use the Death Guard spec. You're probably wondering why I haven't made the tier 80 gear yet. Well, there's a pretty significant bottleneck I'm sure you're all aware of. It's not the Greater Ensouled Cloth. In fact, with multiply 2 on the skill cape and 6 multiply 3 glyphs, you can get 5 cloth from a single piece of subjugation armor. I had plenty of that, so that wasn't a problem. The problem is Hemorrhoid. To make a full set of tier 70 power armor, you need 5 of his preparation plates. Tier 80 requires 10, tier 90, 15. A total of 30 plates, all of which drop at a 1 in 10 rate, 300 kills on average. I didn't really want to do that right now. I was growing accustomed to the tank gear though. All that health is tough to give up. What I did do was craft the gloves and boots first, because on long fights, it's likely that just a single piece of Death Dealer armor will proc and place a death mark on the enemy. Perfect for bosses. It means I don't have to use runes for the spell. What's really bugging me is that I didn't record a ton of my Rasial attempts. For some reason. I spent a half hour killing him with the Aegis Aura, reducing all my damage taken by 10%, and a Hellhound. Then when the aura ran out, I took my pupper to Nex. So I'll show you my good Rasial kill at the end of the video. Are you wondering why I have such a high Zaros kill count? Because I was collecting Blood Reavers to make scrolls so they could heal me while I fought Rasial. Why didn't I record any of this? And since when did Zaros kill count not deplete when you leave the dungeon? Has it always been that way? Comme ci, comme ça. C'est la vie. French stuff. You know, I never knew baguette meant wand in French. I assumed it was just a type of bread, like sourdough or pumpernickel. Wasn't something I ever really thought about. It wasn't until I was putting in some new blinds. The instructions were in English and French. That little stick you twirl to rotate the blinds is called a wand. Then the French instructions caught my eye because it said baguette. Bread, I wondered. Why are the instructions talking about bread? Yeah, baguette means wand. I bet a lot of my European audience already knew that. I learned this about 2 years ago. Oh, seeds. Thanks, Nex. You're the best. Get down from there, ancient ceremonial rope top. You're not an aeroplane. You're religious vestments. You don't belong up in the sky. Silly. Oops, ran out of prayer. I want to try out Necromancy at some other bosses that I'm comfortable with. I spent a lot of time killing Kerapac a while ago for a greater concentrated blast, 500 kills. I got to a point where I was consistently skipping the lightning phases, but he'd still manage to do his little jumpies. Sometimes I get him down to 1 or 2 jumps, but I can never avoid the jumps altogether. How will Necromancy fare? He jumped a single time. And I don't mean a single cycle of 3 jumps. I mean a single jump. The problem, I think, is that I'm killing him fast enough that the Time Warp ability doesn't line up well. Also, Time Warp doesn't reset necrosis stacks or residual souls. I do wonder how many death skulls you could launch out if you timed it correctly. Since Living Death resets the cooldown of death skulls, and Time Warp could also reset the cooldown of death skulls and Living Death, would it be possible to cast it 3 or 4 times in the span of like 15 seconds? Someone should look into that. How about Zuk? Waves are pretty standard. Threads of Fate would probably be quite effective during the first challenge, although Death Skulls is damn strong as well. I didn't need either. I just tore through all the things. Necromancy's pretty strong. Full manual with a tier 90 weapon is pretty good. What I need to do in the future is remember what a good inventory for Zuk is. I always underestimate how much prayer I'd use and end up getting super anxious about it. Also, I constantly forget to bring a restore potion to deal with Zuk's constitution draining effect. Word to the wise, don't stand here after the Unbreakable challenge. That second Jad over there can hit you when you stand here. Praise the defense cape. Then after Sign of Lifing, I walked back to the danger zone, but luckily, both Jads used the same attack style. Also, why did I bring a Script of Jas? Okay, watch this next clip, and tell me what would have happened if I were wearing full Death Dealer power armor. Thought the Jad was dead, but he launched a final magic attack. I didn't swap prayers, but the tank gear came in clutch, and I dodged the attack. Could have killed me. Thanks, Death Warden. I one-cycled TzKal-Zuk, didn't submerge a single time. Zuk time. Not too bad, except for not having the restore potion. For some reason, I switched to my shield to reso the rock drop on head attack, even though I had plenty of runes to use resonance without the shield. All I ended up doing was dismissing my skeleton and ghost. Oops. I'd love it if they made a change so that necromancy shields like the spectral spirit shield cause necromancy conjures not to be dismissed when you equip the shield. You still need a lantern to summon stuff, but having a necromancy shield on doesn't dismiss it. That'd be nice. The second time he dropped the rock, I just didn't do anything and took over 3,000 damage. Luckily, I did get him to 100,000 health just after taking that hit, avoiding the upcoming pizza phase by resetting his rotation. Then I finished him off with 1 beefy Death Guard special attack that'll probably get nerfed. You know, I love it. The animation is cool and all, the attack is strong, but casual 26k crits is kind of absurd. All in all, I was just happy to basically one-cycle Zuk. Our reward for a 22-minute Zuk kill is an igneous stone which I disassembled into a shadow component. Not bad. Maybe chroming will serve a purpose for necromancy sometime in the future. Alright, here's one of my good Rasial kills. I'm using a version of the rotation from the PVM Encyclopedia, but it's modified a bit because theirs requires switching to a wand and casting Smoke Cloud with the ingenuity of the human's ability. I don't have that ability, and I'm not doing that anyway. Also, it assumes you have the Undead Slayer ability, which I don't. This isn't a speed kill, but I think it's a pretty reliable method for me. And it was my fastest kill, so it's a speed kill for me. Pre-summon your spirits outside the boss room. Enter the instance, cast Darkness, and command your ghost. While out of combat, summoning and commanding your conjures costs no adrenaline. When Rasial spawns, throw a Vuln Bomb and cast Death Skull immediately. Then build your adrenaline back up to 100% by casting Soul Sap, Touch of Death, Command Skeleton, 2 auto attacks, another Soul Sap, and a final auto attack. If I had different relics like Conservation of Energy or Fury of the Small, the last auto attack would probably be unnecessary. As soon as you're at 100% adrenaline, activate Living Death and drink an Adrenaline Renewal Potion. The PVM Encyclopedia says to do it at the exact same tick. I don't know why, and I don't think I did, but whatever. Living Death resets the cooldown of Touch of Death and Death Skulls, so we cast the former to build necrosis stacks and to keep it on cooldown. Once we have enough adrenaline, we cast Death Skulls again and auto attack until we have 12 necrosis stacks, since Living Death causes the auto attacks to generate 2 stacks of necrosis. With 12 stacks, we use the Death Guard spec and return to building back to 12 stacks and 60% adrenaline again. By the time we have 10 to 12 stacks, Death Skulls should be off cooldown. The cooldown is reduced to 12 seconds during Living Death, so we cast it once more. By the time Living Death runs out, we should have 12 necrosis stacks, allowing us to cast Finger of Death twice for no adrenaline cost. As soon as we get 60% adrenaline again, we can cast Death Skulls again. Since we cast it during Living Death, that put it on a 12-second cooldown. The cooldown length doesn't change once we leave Living Death. One thing to be careful of though, is moving too far from Rasial when casting Death Skulls. You need to move out of the way of the ghost walls, but doing this could ruin your Death Skulls damage, so I avoided casting the ultimate if Rasial said join us in death, go screw up everything. At this point, he teleports to the platform and this is where the fight gets kinda messy. The PVM Encyclopedia has an example video of the kill, and the person seems to take no damage during this phase. I have no idea how. Like them, I used Reflect to mitigate some of the damage, but I still take a ton if I don't move around. Gear might have a lot to do with the speed of the kill. In the video, they're using a Majorat aura, a Reaver's ring, and Death Dealer armor. I assume it's tier 90. They're also using a Death Touch bracelet. I wasn't sure what it did, but since you can reflect damage back onto Rasial, it's probably very effective here. Anyway, the big issue I was having earlier in the video, when I asked you to figure out what the problem was that I wasn't manually casting the auto attack. When you're running around, you don't attack. It's not a problem if you're manually casting abilities, but there aren't many basic abilities in Necromancy. The ones that do exist have longish cooldowns, but the auto attack doesn't, except for the global cooldown. By spamming the auto attack while running around, I build up enough adrenaline to let me cast abilities like Finger of Death without necrosis stacks, or Spectral Scythe to fish for residual souls, and then I can cast a volley of souls. It's not clean, but it's pretty consistent. With a Vampirism aura and a Hellhound, I hardly need to eat any food. But to save adrenaline, I brought Blue Blubber Jellyfish and Saradomin and Bruise. Using them together heals 1750 HP without draining any adrenaline. I look forward to camping this boss. I just hope I'm not one of those people that goes 500 kills dry. Rasial's basic loot is pretty terrible. More Necromancy PVM coming soon. Perhaps an Ambassador solo? Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to all the channel members for supporting the channel. Take care, everyone.